If you want to know how I made this delicious looking plate of garden egg sauce with just 1,000 naira, let go! So I woke up this beautiful morning and I was stuck. I was thinking, what do I post for my second YouTube video? And I know it's quite early, but at this point I was wondering, who sent me message? Like, why on earth did I decide to open a YouTube channel? I would have just paid attention to what brought me here, shouted "Wiwa," collected my copper alawi, and bounced. But no, I decided to open a YouTube channel. But I must continue, and I really do not have any choice. Well, after all said and done, it clicked. So I grabbed my keys, grabbed my bag, and proceeded to the market. Now, while we were on our way to the market, let me tell you a little story. Story of how I started to cook. I was 5 years old when my mother shoved my head into kitchen. In her mind, I was ready to cook. Her instruction was simple: make eba for me. I want to eat. Well, in my head, I thought eba is simply hot water and garri. And there was already hot water in the flask. I mean, you can't. And I think you know what happened next. I poured the water from the flask into a plate, poured the garri, covered it, and waited for the magic to happen. A few minutes later, I uncovered it, and lo and behold, it wasn't sticky. The next thing I heard was my name, and my mother barged into the kitchen, wondering what was taking me so long. I tried to explain to her that it wasn't my fault, but that the eba was refusing to stick, and that there must be something wrong with the garri. I waited for the worst, but she started laughing and then explained to me. Okay, story I finished. We are at the market. Time to buy something. It's not a new news that tomatoes is not the new gold of Nigeria, and if you want to buy baskets of tomatoes, I'd rather you invest in real estate. I mean, to yield you more profit over time than buying tomatoes. You say this one how much? 100? For 4? It don't cost pass as if before I've been waiting up. My first. So this 3 like this one are 3 like customer. I know the tomato fed here, but today on don't pass. You don't too much now. Yeah? Love you. Thankfully, she eventually sold 3 sets for 250 naira. So when I was done buying pepper and tomatoes, I went ahead to buy the other ingredients. I won't be showing everything I bought one by one because I didn't use everything of some of the things that I bought, if that makes any sense. Just check out the description box below for the ingredients and the prices I used attached. I finished buying, got back home, and it was time to cook. These are the ingredients I'm going to be using for cooking. I'll be using groundnut oil. There's usually this power oil that is sold for 120 naira for a sachet. This is a similar quantity. I'm also going to be using fresh pepper, which is called atarodo in Yoruba, and this one costs me 100 naira. But I'm not going to be using everything because this particular species is very hot. I'll be using half of it, which is 50 naira. Next, I'm going to be using nut cubes, and there are usually 2 cubes inside, but I'm going to be using only 1. I'm also going to be using onion bulb, 1 onion bulb, and I bought 5 of it for 100 naira, but I'm using just 1, which is 20 naira. Next, we have salt, and in obedience to ancestors, there is no measurement. We just do it until the spirit says stop. Here we have shrimp, and it's usually bigger than crayfish. I got this one for 200 naira, but we're going to be using half of it, which is 100 naira. I detached the head from the tails, blended the head with the tomato and pepper, and put the tails directly into the sauce. Next, we have crayfish, and the quantity I bought is actually 100 naira, but the one we are going to be using here is equivalent to 50 naira. You can either increase or reduce the quantity based on your personal preference. Next, we have smoked balan fish, and I got this one for 200 naira. It can vary based on where you stay. This is garden egg, which is the major ingredient for this dish. I got this one for 100 naira. Now let's get into the cooking proper. The first thing I did was I cleaned my garden egg, cut off the heads and split it into 2. Put it into a pot and put hot water for it to cook. Next thing I did was to separate the pepper into 2 equal parts, and I used 1 part for the sauce. I blended it with the tomatoes, and like I said before, with the head part of the shrimp. So the next thing I did was to wash my tomato and pepper along with the onion, but I didn't blend the onion with the tomato and pepper. I actually chopped it up. So this is me just simply separating the shrimp into 2 Please parts. Do not use too much of shrimp because it can be very strong and can overwhelm the entire taste of the sauce. Then I went ahead to clean the shrimp and the fish, deboned it, and this is just the finished product. As you all know, I'm using fish for this recipe because, well, it is obviously cheap and this is food on a budget. I cannot break the bank. I have the money to get another type of fish. Please go ahead. When the garden egg was fully cooked, I simply mashed it up along with the skin. I usually don't remove the skin, but if you want to, you can do that. I chopped up my onions and cut them into tiny bits. You can decide to make it larger depending on your own preference. This is my blended tomato and pepper paste, and you notice that it's not smoothly blended. This is the consistency that you want for this particular garden egg sauce. Now that all my ingredients are set, let's begin making the sauce proper. So first thing I did was I put my pot on fire, waited for it to get hot and added my oil. Once the oil was hot, I added in my chopped onion and fried that a little bit. Next, I poured in my blended tomato, pepper and shrimp paste and allowed that to fry for a few minutes. I've never understood the concept of putting salt directly into hot oil because it doesn't really dissolve. It was at this point that I put in my salt, turned it and allowed it to cook. From this point, it's pretty straightforward. I poured in my crayfish powder, then poured in my shrimp, fish, knorr cubes, gave it a very good stir and allowed it to cook. Just behold this deliciousness. At this point, my mom will usually scoop some of the sauce out and keep it for herself. I don't know why she never allowed us to touch it. But now I can do it, but I did not do it in this video, sha. Finally, I added in the garden egg itself. Let me just say at this point that the type of garden eggs I used were those small, whitish, round ones with green stripes on the body. Those were not the ones my mom used. And I discovered that the slender, greenish, almost greenish all over ones are usually sweeter for this particular type of sauce. Also, this type of sauce that I made, you can use it for rice because the garden egg is not very overpowering. The one my mom used to make used to be strictly for yam and potato and cocoyam, tubers generally. You couldn't really use them for rice. That's really it, and the garden egg sauce is ready. Thank you for watching. See you in my next video. God bless and bye. Lest I forget, please subscribe, like and comment down below. Thank you.